All right. Welcome back to another episode of Stuck in the Nail. I think we're on episode 3. It's all a blur.
Sounds right.
Yeah. My name's Daft Hobbit, and with me, as always, I got Echo 5 Romeo. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. How are you?
Solid, dude. I got the coffee with a little special something in there, you know, just to get the day jump started, because it is early
Hell
today.
yeah, man. Yeah.
But yeah, dude, we got some wonderful Christmas decorations up here on my end. Thank you, Mallory.
Oh, look at you.
And yeah, let's dive in, dude. What's on the docket today? We had an operation last night.
We did. We had an operation. I think it's important to maybe speak about different types of infantry roles or ground roles, right? Much in the same way that we have loosely defined ship roles. Yeah. I mean, cool. I think there's some fun stuff to talk about today.
Agreed. So we'll dive in here. Last night what did we call the operation? Operation 21?
21 or 21 guns or something along those
21
lines.
21 guns, I think.
The lore guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
The lore guy's coming in my headset right now. Yep, 21 guns. They're saying it's 21 guns.
Right. Okay, good. So we trained as an org for over a week to do some combat operations against a group called OAC. So OAC, if you're watching this, we salute you. Shout out to you guys. That was fun.
Oh yeah.
Also, shout out to the privateers and the Mighty Eighth. Mighty Eighth fucking killed it. So
killed it.
We kind of got into a little. We kind of put our blinders on and we made a lot of assumptions, right? In our preparation.
Oh
yeah. Yeah.
Very much.
So, yeah, let's expound on that, because that's a big thing for orgs, a big thing for anybody who's doing planning on a tactical or strategic level within your community or your organization. If you're going to do PvP, it's really easy for you to make assumptions.
Yes,
so
very much so. Especially because well, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how does one mitigate that?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? It's tough, right? Because I think as gamers we're used to very singular paths that you can take. In most games, like Squad, you have a singular path of flags you have to take. The most popular game mode in Battlefield is a singular take points and move forward, right? So like this confined thought process. So it takes a lot of the thinking out of it for you as the player or anybody that wants to think beyond that, right? But then when you start looking at games like Star Citizen and Arma, I mean, really you can be hit anywhere, right? Like it's especially in Star Citizen. I mean, there's an air threat, there's a space threat, there's a ground threat, there's an underground threat, there's a vehicle threat. Like it's endless. So It's tough to sort of define a singular like contingent, like plan a course of action. And in the real world, it's the same thing, right? Like there's so many unknowns, you never know everything. So you try to take away as many of the unknowns as you can from your side by, coordinating with each other. We did in our planning for this one, we broke into planning cells. And so I broke the entirety of the Mighty Eighth and the privateers down into elements. I gave them their own places to plan, let them plan their piece of the puzzle with me giving overhand, like big picture guiding points of what tasks I want them to complete. And then trying to feed them as much information as I could about the location. The location was a little bit up in the air, and that was by design. We were trying to test out some logistic stuff. And I think with that in mind, I think we got a lot of good data points for that.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy with how that turned out for us. I wish we could have got the ground guys into some combat, but it just didn't work out. The location didn't work out for that. But our air assets they were the fucking number one stars, right?
Dude, they're unstoppable. Mighty Eighth.
Yeah.
Great work.
Oh, yeah.
So,
but I think we did well. I think we planned for a singular point, and that point didn't come up. And we flexed well, and for the most part, our plan really didn't change, other than the assault, which again didn't really happen due to the area being in an armistice zone. So
yeah, there was some curveballs thrown at us, which was good. I think that's what we were aiming for, is something to keep us on our toes, contingencies to plan for, things like that. We did get some blinders where we just were planning for a singular, well, it's likely that they'll go to a bunker, so we planned on how to breach a bunker, right? But yeah, props to OAC for changing it up on us as well. It was kind of eye opening though, because we did really good as a ground unit. We just didn't get in any fights, but everybody's spirits were up. Everybody was having a kick-ass time because we were still implying like actual tactics that we've trained on, and it was really cool to see. We were planning on a direct action, close quarters assault of a bunker, and that changed, and then we were a standard infantry squad roaming the hills of Hurston with 30, 40, 50-meter dispersion between all of us. Just checking our left and rights and moving in formations. And so it really was a testament to all the things that we've been training as a group and everyone's input and being available to do some boring shit in the game has paid off for like the smoothest op that could possibly be. So you'll see some footage from it. It's rather boring from our end, but there's some crucial fundamentals being shown here. So that's what we want to showcase. Is like it's not always going to be fast-paced, awesome Call of Duty style because it's a sandbox and it's simulating closer to real-world tactics than anything else. Because you go jump into a squad server, you're in the action right away. You go jump into Call of Duty, Battlefield, you're in the action right away. No one gets to see the logistical setup and also intelligence gathering. A point I wanted to touch on about this Operation Echo was the element you were a part of, which was reconnaissance. That's your background as a recon Marine. 10 years plus experience from Echo. So if you guys are listening, perk up a little more because in the current way we set up operations, I don't feel like reconnaissance teams in the traditional sense is quite there yet because of server cap and how we joined servers, right? Did you feel at all like the recon element was kind of staunched or, blocked in certain ways?
Yeah. And again, I think in the early days of Star Citizen, like we're in right now, it's almost important to sort of like build that into your op event, sort of like presentation. Like you have to kind of force some of these things in there. And that's something I didn't do. And I wish if I could go back and do it again, that would be like, we have a reconnaissance element and they're going to, move at this point and it's to simulate this, particular thing. Right.
Right.
And so I didn't want to give the hand away, but that was stupid on my part for not like, putting that out there and like, this is something we want to test. So yes, the recon element was not useful. It was irrelevant. Let me back up. The recon element in planning was highly useful because I think that the information and the products that the reconnaissance element led by our privateer Chenkov, what's up, buddy?
Yo.
He did put in just fucking hours and hours of work of flying over the target that we had thought, even flying over multiple different targets and snapping pictures and then going back and doctoring those images to have grid marks and show true north and where locations where the recon was going to set in and where from aerial reconnaissance we thought would be the best entry point, which gave the assault element the ability to sort of plan their piece of the puzzle, right? Like once their feet hit the ground, what are they doing and where should they go? Because you guys are just kind of blind. And if you look at it's not troop leading procedures, but it's BAMSIS. It's I'm gonna fuck this up. It's so bad. But it's begin planning,
arrange recon,
make recon. Arrange recon, make reconnaissance,
complete your plan,
complete your plan.
Yeah, issue orders and supervise.
Right?
BAMSIS ISR. BAMSIS ISR.
Yeah, right. All are fucking
like a decade plus
rolling
ago,
over their graves right now.
I haven't said that out loud.
I know, right? So in that terminology, right? Like reconnaissance is mentioned twice because reconnaissance is super important when you're planning an op, right? You want eyes before you go, you want eyes while you're there, and you want eyes afterwards, right? So what is going to be there? What are they doing? And what do they do? How are they reacting afterwards? And it helps you just paint the picture of your enemy, right? Like in totality, so that you can put that in your book, and next time you face that group or that org, you have a better idea what they're going to do or what they might change, right, based on how they reacted to your tactics. So
Right. And I
we
think,
didn't get to do the observation on the objective, just because the curveball we got thrown at us, but I think we flexed well and tried to,
yeah, you guys made
Chekhov did a
yourself
really good job
useful.
at flexing.
So
Yeah, right. Yeah.
the reconnaissance, even though we hit a different objective and a lot of it went out the window, but all those repetitions, Chenkov did it flawlessly. And so I'm actually going to use some of Chenkov's photos that he created. He created our own grid, so our own map with grid coordinates, basically, just something simple, 1 through 8, A through E, or something like that. So we could call out sectors and grids if there was something. He designated and found out north based off of the ship compasses. He did he markers, distances, like, dude, everything a reconnaissance team would be doing on the ground, feeding an assault team. But that would take them weeks beforehand. They would be on an objective or close to an objective, observing from distance for days, weeks, sometimes months, depending on what's going on, right? Think about the reconnaissance that went into D-Day on Normandy. It's all prep work. So I would say the reconnaissance team 100% did their job. Just we got thrown a curveball. And then it's really hard to do rushed reconnaissance in the game currently. If CIG gave ground people more tools to define those roles, and we can kind of segue into this too, the reconnaissance role, like let's open that up. Like we have specific ships, right? The Cuddy Blue. What's that role? Oh, it's a prisoner movement ship. Like that's super specific, right? The Hawk as well. It's like a bounty hunting, capturing a person, throwing them in that little coffin tube on the back of that thing. Like those are all specific ships. The Mantis as well. So they define those roles for those ships, but the ground teams, we don't have any role definition. It's just different weapons. So, for example, let's open it up for a reconnaissance role. What tool could you guys have used, or tools that would define a recon team or role?
I think I said it last episode, and maybe even the first episode. Binoculars. Like,
Yeah.
I think we spent half a day trying to figure out what optics and what guns work with what armor, right? And those are bugs. I got it. But even then, an 8 and a 16x optic are so constricting as far as like vision and. But if you give me just the optic, I'll take that, and then that way I don't have a gun attached to it, and then you can make it more powerful, right? So it's something that I have to put up to my face, bring it down, pull out my gun, and then shoot, right? Like I think that would be a tool that would be very, very handy.
Absolutely.
Server cap, honestly, I just don't think that reconnaissance can be conducted. It just has to be a weird like implementation of it, until server caps are gone, and persistence is fully online. Like it's just one of those things where yes, we can go out days prior and look at locations and sort of get that same without having to keep your character in game and looking at the objective. You can go and look at these structures and the topology around it and build these products and images like Chenkov did and give those to your elements so that it's useful to them. I think the air guys found it useful for LZs and DZs. I think the ground guys found it useful because they knew ingress and egress for recon, where they were going to be, how they were going to set in, where the front door was, all of that stuff. So by the time you hit the ground, if you've never been there, right, you know exactly what you're looking at.
Dude, absolutely. Now, had we hit the objective that Chenkov, we originally were planning for, without that curveball, that was all invaluable. It was the best laid out reconnaissance I've seen in a video game. That's twice Chenkov has bewildered me. The first time was with his real updatable, like real-time map. I think it was just a Google document that we all shared, and he could edit it while he was on the ground, if you remember that one. Yeah. So Chenkov essentially, without his knowledge, he is shaping the content we're going to talk about on the podcast, which hopefully can influence the actual gameplay, because we need more tools on the ground. That was just the overarching theme of last night's op. The air battles,
Yeah.
phenomenal. Mighty Eighth did great with them. OAC put up a fantastic fight too. It was
Oh
epic.
yeah, absolutely.
And being a ground guy in the back of a hammerhead, like waiting to get put on the ground, it was jarring. And we were
Feeling
just
like the dude in the in the Higgins boats coming
yeah,
up to the beach landing
yeah,
site.
like
You know what I mean?
like
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, we had like Von Poe over in the corner, like barfing, like ugh. Vesper's trying to tell us a funny joke to chill the nerves. No, it's
yeah.
jarring because you don't know what's going on. But I think there could be so much more tools to define that role. What if, with the server cap and how we log into the game, what if the reconnaissance team, what if you could make a base camp and spawn there,
Yeah.
load into the
Uh,
game?
be, yeah. I mean, being able to pre-stage like that. I mean, in real life, if we're going to do an operation, your recon guys are already out there.
Yeah, they're
So,
already there.
it's yeah. And bed logging is 50-50. It worked for some of our
Sure.
guys. Unfortunately for the reconnaissance team, it just didn't work. We ended up getting 30,009 errors, so we had to do character resets. And we tried it a few different ways, and we just could not get it to sync correctly without interrupting the gameplay, right? So
Yeah.
I
It's
get
hard.
it. We're an alpha. There's some bugs. We're still working through all that stuff. I'd say the other thing is icons, right? Like
Yeah.
to be the ability to turn those on and off would be interesting and worth it. Just because having
Totally.
100 or 50 icons on the or 25 icons sucks. But if you could turn those off and only pinpoint what you want, or
Yeah. Place a marker too.
I think we did a pretty good job. We didn't use I think each element was in their own party, and
Yeah.
so you guys had icons for each other. I think we could tweak that TTP a little bit too, and I don't know. There's a lot of different things you could do. Maybe element leaders are in a team together. I don't know. There's 101 different ways we can play with it, but
I should have had a command and signal plan that was a little better, so it was well known. I literally just threw a random chem light on my character and was like, "I'll use this." I didn't tell anybody,
and that
about
worked.
It worked. On the
It works
fly.
every time. Like you
does.
were able to pick it up. Hey, this chem light designates ground team. All the air assets knew where you were because you were given sit reps and periodically dropping that chem light. So
Yeah, just turn it off.
It was
Bump, bump.
yeah,
But
right.
I could have
So it's
outlined that
one of those
better,
cool
is what
things.
I was saying. I could have outlined it better. Like, comm plan is this, or like command and signal is this, blue chem light or red equals this, that. That could have been laid out, because like that wouldn't fly in the real world, right? You can in an emergency, be on comms and designate a color for smoke or whatever, but like it should be outlined prior.
Sure.
So, but on the hilltop, I'm like, yeah, look for a yellow chem light, and I was like blinking it on and off. Like you have to like activate it, and then you have to like go into your inventory and put it in your backpack, and then it turns it off. So, simple fixes like that. If it's futuristic chem light, can I toggle it off and on, please? Like, little fixes like that. A place for people to log in, like a camp. If it's a one-time thing, cool. But like we still also ran into a problem if we were out there for an extended time. Luckily, it was Hurston, so there was breathable atmo, so you could take your helmet off and eat. But if we weren't, how is a foot soldier going to eat? Again, we're running into this. I just keep thinking about this. So can someone log into the game if they've set up a base camp somewhere? Like that would just expand the amount of gameplay you could do. If you really want to go on a journey and a trek, and do the Forrest Gump where you're running across, Hurston or whatever, like you got to be able to log out without getting back to a space station or your ship. So that would help reconnaissance, dude. That would help define your reconnaissance. Someone a spacesuit, just give us one spacesuit that can eat and drink, sustain you, and then someplace you can log out on the ground, and then boom, all of a sudden we have a reconnaissance role. Wow.
Yep.
Also some optics.
And those are tools, right? Those are tools that are much in the same way that you have the new medical guns, which I think are fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
And there are different levels of those medical guns too, right?
Sure.
You can just be a dumb grunt and hit yourself with that medical gun, and okay, you got more health. But if you break your leg or you're vision goes fuzzy or whatever, it takes somebody a little bit more specialized and skilled with that tool to be able to deliver those meds to you. And so CIG has elegantly, in my opinion, created this medical role that requires skill to master, not
Yeah.
credits or XP or unlocks or whatever, right? And so if we can try to help define those other ground rules and what those look like, hopefully there's a launching board there for CIG to continue that trend of creating these ground rules, much in the same way that they have specialized ship rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's a simple little thing we could do is currently there's two types of med guns. You can get an attachment for your multi-tool or you can use the dedicated medical gun. But they essentially do the same thing from what I'm understanding. And I hope someone corrects me if I'm wrong, please do
Yeah.
so because I haven't
No, we're
delved as
dumb
deep.
grunts. I don't
Yeah,
play with the medical guns, so I
right.
don't know, but I know that it's more detailed than it looks.
Exactly. Yes. So if the medical or like that multi-tool attachment was like a simpleton, just shoot somebody with it. Just you're
The
good, buddy.
equivalent of a tourniquet,
Yeah.
right? We're told like dumb grunts get I got a tourniquet on my kit. There was tourniquets, like
Oh,
3 or 4
fucking
tourniquets all over my
yeah.
body.
Minimum of
And
4.
it was whip it off. You got a gunshot wound, throw it on your arm as high as you can get it, lock it down, and a medic will come up or a corpsman will come up and fix it.
Yeah, and
Right?
that's
Like
where you stop. You get the tourniquet
that's
on.
it.
You just
Yeah.
scream.
Maybe you have a
Yeah.
CLS, an intermediary, right? From dumb grunt CLS to, medic, and that CLS
Yeah.
can like maybe patch the wound, right? Like bandage it
Keep
up.
the dirt out
And
of
then the
it.
corpsman can come behind, take the turret off and the tourniquet off, or you're not supposed to take the tourniquet off, but further on that medical
Yes.
care, right?
Layers.
And yeah, it's a layered approach, much in the same way that you have bounty hunter ships, right? You have the Hawk, it's a single pod, and it's got an EMP, but then you've got the Cutlass Blue, right? And the Cutlass Blue has multiple pods, and then the Cat has modules for storing people. So
Yes.
it's this iterative and expansive role that those ships play, and we're looking for the same tools on the ground for that kind of
and
refinement.
and hopefully like we just want to get the wheels turning in the community. Like if you have ideas, put them out there, get them to us, let us talk about them. Come join our Discord and our Guilded and talk to us. And like let's
get on Spectrum and talk about this stuff too.
Yeah, we still need to post on Spectrum and get this podcast out there too. But like we want to be the voice for furthering gameplay. Because we love flying. We've said it before. We love all aspects of the game. We just want to focus on ground because that's where our heart is, right? And yeah, the medical, like we could use some expounding on that as well. And it's tier 0, tier 1, or whatever tier it is. It's beginning phases. So we'll see what it develops into. Because then there's going to be higher level, like, forward hospital or like, what do you call it? A field hospital. Or then there's going to be like the Apollo medical ships. Like I would hope to see like some players being able to like perform a surgery on somebody or like do some actual
replace legs and arms and
and then you got to have somebody who knows how to tune your mechanical arm, because it's like it's jittering like
and honestly, I'm not like trying to insult anyone's intelligence here. You don't know what you don't know, right? And if you've never been in the military, it's hard to like really think of. I'll take guns for example. Guns are obviously first person tools or FPS tools that often get overlooked for looks rather than usage, right? And here's my example. A rifle is different from a machine gun, which is different from a long gun, which is different from a pistol, which is different from a shotgun, right? All these tools, because that's what they are, have their specific purposes. And I think a lot of games just decide to make spread patterns or rates of fire and call that good. But in reality, a rifle is a precision weapon system, right? It's not meant to be fired full auto. And in fact, I can count on maybe one hand how many times I fired my M4 on full auto. And in that count, mostly it was on the range for familiarity.
Just for fun, right? Yeah. Or
I think there was one time in actual combat that I flipped it, and it was because the machine gun went down and it just 30 rounds, get it out, put the dude's head down while the dude's reloading, that kind of thing. But in reality, I always fired my M4 on single fire, right? And that was because I knew where my target was, I knew what was behind it, and I knew where I wanted to hit the guy, right? Or at least where I was trying to hit the guy. Whereas you got a machine gun and that thing just yeets bullets just to yeet bullets, right? It just wastes ammo. And in real life, when a machine gun's going off and you're in the receiving end of it, you don't want to fucking pop out from the cover you're in, right?
No, you don't.
Because you value your life, you value, why you exist, right? You breathing, you're like, I don't want to die. In the game, that's a little bit harder to do. I think they're making life a little bit more valuable, right? I don't want to lose my items, spend the time to gain all my items back, that kind of stuff.
Plus, you don't want to lose your spaceman, right? You're like, I don't want to lose my character. I haven't died yet. And I only have so many types of regens, so there is permadeath coming. So that will make combat a lot more hesitant. You'll be hesitant to peek that corner because of a machine gun fire, right?
And so suppression comes into game, right? And I think Battlefield does it. A lot of games do machine guns really bad. They're just like, increase the fire rate, make the dispersion bigger, and that's a machine gun. And also, that's not what a machine gun is.
Increase the hip fire spread, so it's just garbage.
Yeah, it's not. But you throw a bipod on there, you get on the ground, and a machine gun has a really small spread. Like you can really be accurate with it depending on how you're shooting it, the cadence in which you're shooting it.
I'm getting
if you're
smiley.
just holding the trigger down, that shit's gonna go everywhere.
I'm getting smiley because you and I both have an affinity for machine guns. I was a saw gunner for a good portion of my infantry career. I know you were touching all sorts of machine guns, and I also like long guns because that's a hobby of mine in real life. But dude,
long guns is another good one, right? So a long gun's purpose is pinpoint accuracy. So if a rifle is precision fire, so is a long gun, but it's pinpoint, right? It's longer distances,
further distance,
right? Exactly,
and observation and that's as well.
100%, and that's very useful for maybe you're not shooting the target, but you have
the camera.
yeah,
we got to get that fixed. Long guns. If you have the target,
long guns. So you have it. Maybe you're not focused on the target, right? Like in most movies, but you have that. You're set on. Hey, watch the western entrance, right? Anything that comes through that western entrance, take it out, and you're able to. I referenced the sniper from Saving Private Ryan. He's in the bell tower. He's giving out directions. He's doing observations with his optic.
Yeah.
But then at key moments, he's hitting guys that are, could break down the security of the team, right? And so a long gun is super useful. Where you got the guys with the M1 Grands that are just, the grunts. They're just that's still precision firing, but right.
And then the machine guns for suppression. But you know what game does machine guns really well? Squad. That machine gun is horrible. You can hip fire it. Like if you're gonna clear out a building, you run in and just lay the hammer down, like blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But if a machine gunner gets prone and they're able to bipod, that thing is a goddamn laser, and you're just putting bursts, just sweeping exactly where you want it, and it's very realistic. If you're loading a bipod on a machine gun in real life, you're laying prone, you dig your toes in, you lean forward into that bipod, and the bipod is literally flexing against the ground. And then you lay a burst out. Dude, you can put all 5 rounds, I swear to God, through like a tiny window at 500 yards. You could put a 5-round burst.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane the amount of accurate volume of fire a machine gun could do. I would love to see that in Star Citizen. Make those machine guns even more deadly with a bipod. Now, if you're up and running through a building, a little different. But if that guy goes prone, wants to lock down a hallway, good fucking luck. Right. And then that makes room for more tools. We need smoke grenades, maybe deployable covers.
And
all sorts of shit.
On the machine gun, man, like that's what that's intended for. Like,
lockdown.
Fuck everything in that direction. And if a dude pops a corner and sees that or hears that, he doesn't want to go that direction anymore. So you've now cut off a potential, corridor for that enemy to move through, and you can funnel your enemy where you want to using those tools, right? Shotguns are great. 9 times out of 10 in real combat, they're used as breaching tools, which I get. We're working with wood and like thin metals and, different malleable, more softer materials in the real world. And in space, everything sort of has to be built out of, metals to withstand different things.
Tungsten.
Right. But CIG is a smart group of people, I'm sure they could figure out a unique purpose for the shotgun. And then you have
Yeah.
your pistol. And to me, that's always just your last like resort. Like, shit, I ran out of bullets. And I mean, for us, we carried a pistol. I, again, can probably count on one hand how many times I used that shit in combat, but it was click. Oh shit, I got to pull my pistol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what you know, bang, 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 eliminate the threat, reload my rifle, and I'm back up with my rifle, that kind of thing, you know? So,
Yeah.
um,
Dude, I had a guy
I
tell
just,
me his pistol, it was only a CQB enhancement. So
yeah, or a
if
chow hall ticket.
yeah, yeah, if he got in close and someone, on a door breach, someone was right in his face and his muzzle wasn't able, because he bypassed the muzzle, and now he's in his face.
Yeah.
That pistol is a draw away, and you're literally here with that pistol. So he would.
And I love
latch it.
those. For CIG to implement something like that, I think it would, like, for the actor status, would be incredibly. I don't even know how
Yeah.
you would go about doing something like that.
Maybe
but
it's a takedown.
yeah, I mean,
or something.
it's one of the, grab the dude's muscle, and you drop your rifle, and you have your pistol right here. You have a knife, you have a pistol. Like, these things are why we carry those guns. They're always secondary weapons. They're not primary weapons, and so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I'm saying CIG isn't doing that. I think I'm trying to get ahead of the.
Yeah, we're just open in discussion.
Hey, listen, maybe try this, right? See what this looks like. How does it feel? What are the challenges to, coding that or developing that and seeing what happens, right? We're in an alpha. Like, we have force reactions that just got willy-nilly thrown in there on a whim. Why not willy-nilly throw the idea of a bipod on a machine gun and making it accurate? Why not? See what happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, from planning from this op, the just so everyone who's watching or listening, the operation that we were planning on against OAC, we were tasked with capturing a VIP. Now, currently in the game, the only way to down a VIP is to actually physically shoot him or knife him or stab him, like knock him out, and then they'll go into an incapacitated state. But it's just kind of janky and unreliable. So if I shoot a guy in the leg or chest or arm enough times, they will go down. And then a medic can keep them alive. So our plan was to incapacitate a guy and then drag his body outside into a ship, which is really hard to do when we were testing it. So some other tools there.
And that goes. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we designated an enemy prisoner of war team, an EPW team. And we don't have any tools to capture anyone, right? So that could open up more roles on the FPS side, and it could also help flesh out the bounty hunter career. If you're going to capture an NPC or a player and you want to turn them in alive for that maximum credit reward or whatever it is, you need we need non-lethals, and we need some way. Maybe if you have your pistol out, maybe I can, instead of doing a takedown, I can grab and make a hostage of somebody, and control them that way. But sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, to your point about EPW or a VIP situation or even a bounty like that, right? If he's being, going back to the weapons and their specific roles, a rifle is perfect for precision fire on the arms and legs, whereas a machine gun is pointed in a direction that his buddies are going to come from, and now you've locked down his buddies from getting to him to protect him, right? And so, or you have, I think at one point one of your COAs was to put a long gun in the back of an elevator, and his sole job was to
headshot
pinpoint headshots, so now your rifles are focusing on arms and legs, your long guns are focusing on popping heads, and your machine guns are focusing on locking down corridors so bad guys don't want to even come around those corners. And now you've done your job. Now you have another set of dudes that can kind of advance forward and take, like you said, now we have this mechanic where we can take this dude as a hostage. Or with the non-lethal weapons coming out soon, zap the dude, put him on the ground. The machine gun's still covering the corner. You don't necessarily have to kill everybody in there. You just have to extract the VIP, get him on the elevator, and get him the fuck out,
Yeah.
So.
And we just, the game's lacking tools for that. I think the plan is to put more in there, but it would be cool to see them sooner than later. Yeah. How do you restrain a player, right? How do you restrain them? How do you limit it? So when we were thinking about it, we're like, okay, well, we don't want the VIP to get killed by his own team, because that's, if sometimes that happens. If you have a high value terrorist or something and they get captured and like their only option is to stop you or stop one side from getting that intelligence, getting that high value target, they're going to assassinate him if they have to, if they're desperate enough. Or the guy, he might have a cyanide pill in his tooth, like that stuff still happens today. People have contingency plans to commit suicide rather than surrender information. And so we were like, okay, how do we plan for this? Because like if the VIP is going to die, we have to use a med gun to res him. And then what? We just knock him out again and move him 3 feet, res him and knock him out again and move him 3 feet. And, that's going to take forever. So how do we keep him alive without bringing him back into the game so he can run away? And we're like, okay, we got to leave some of his armor on. So in case we get in a gunfight, he doesn't get hit because we still want to protect that asset. But we still want to make it easy for us to like knock him out. So we're like, maybe we take off his leg armor and just tap him in the legs until he goes down again. We're like, so we're fleshing this out. And I don't know if there's no conversations about this in Star Citizen. How do you capture another player if that's going to be a profession, bounty hunter?
Well, and I think there are two groups of FPS players. You have guys that are like us, that are crazy, that we sit down for 4 days, 72 hours, and we plan these ops out, right? Like going through those Nat's ass details and understanding like, okay, well, what happens if we do this? Okay, that's not going to work. Let's try this, and developing those courses of actions. And then you have other players that just want that John Wick experience, right?
Yeah.
And I don't envy CIG's position, but I think the game, and I could be wrong, I think the game they're going for is more depth, more detail. So it would favor guys like us versus your John Wicks, right? Yeah. Which I don't think it should be impossible for a guy to do John Wick stuff if he wants to. If he could get really good with a med gun, he could get really good with a pistol, and manipulate these things to do those actions. But it's not like to think you're going to buy Star Citizen, get into the game, and then just John Wick all over the place. Like that's not going to happen, right? Same in the same way that you're not just going to hop in, unless you get into an org that's established and then get into these large org battles.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen, right? Because it takes time. You need to know people. You need to understand mechanics, all this stuff. So give us the detail and the depth on those tools and mechanics to let us become experts and define roles on the ground. Breaching is another one, right?
Oh, yeah. You had some great ideas for breaching. You were talking about, like you mentioned the mining tools, right? Expound on that. I can't say what you were saying. That was good.
Oh yeah. So the mining tools are cool, right? So it's allowing them to break up these rocks, but we're getting door charges, right? And so I don't know how those are going to work, but I imagine that there's going to be some communication between that door asset and that charge asset that says, hey, at this timer, open, right? Like, but there's going to be fire and all this other stuff to contend with.
Sure.
But, adding weak points into ships, right, that are breachable, stuff like that, that if I can get through the shields with my hands and place a charge on it, it's going to be weaker than if I go, I don't know, on a reinforced part of the ship or on a building, right? Like understanding like how the structure is built. So when you build charges, like you think about the structure that you're like the building practices of the area you're in. I know cops do it with, stick homes built in America. And I'm sure other agencies do it overseas with how European houses are built and stuff like that. But everybody in each location sort of builds their shit differently. And so when you build a breaching charge, you're not necessarily always targeting a door, right? That's the easiest thing, but you got windows, you got walls, right? Yeah. Like we know that most houses in America are built 16 inches on center, the studs are. So if you can build a charge to cut a hole big enough to get through one stud, right? And you don't collapse the whole fucking house.
Yeah.
You can get in through a side entry, which surprises the guy on the other side, right? Or for the example in Afghanistan, all that stuff is like, there are some good construction in like practices in Afghanistan, some stuff that made my head spin, but I had to learn that stuff and understand how much power to use and what type of charge to use. And was I pushing, was I pulling, was I cutting, all that stuff. And so the door charge is great. The torch is great, but give us those tools and then make the mechanics to support that so that somebody can get good at breaching, right? And you have a breacher now, you have a medic, and you've done all this without creating a role that you click on when you join the game, and you have the access to these
Right.
tools,
You don't have to click a kit that's already pre-designated, right? It's up to
Right.
you. So you could be a medic slash breacher if your team calls
Good.
for it. There's
Yeah.
any combination of it. If you're spun up on all these different things and you know exactly how to do medical and breaching, like the depth is what we're looking for, right? Because
Yeah. Context, I think, is the word you
context,
used, right?
yeah, the context. Like, we also have pyro to look forward to. That little demo they showed of that little settlement, that little colony on the ground, that looked like
Yeah.
hard stone rather than, like shaped material like stone. It was like cut. It wasn't metal. If you see it, it's like
Mhm.
almost like a Middle Eastern style build to it, but with the
Some kind of
space.
a
Yeah,
non-organic, or I guess
like a
yeah,
composite stone. I don't know. Right.
yeah,
But
like a
maybe
more
that's what,
organic material than man-made.
yeah, like maybe that's what the Pioneer does is it like you can shovel, rock and stone into it and then you can shape segments of
Mhm.
buildings. Like that would be cool too. But
Yeah.
yeah, like that's going to change breaching dynamics. That's going to change all sorts of stuff. So it kind
Well,
of
and
has a
then
little
if you
Star
even
Wars
take
vibe.
things like airlocks, right? Like airlocks,
Yeah.
give us more detail in the airlocks. Let us learn how those airlocks work, right? Instead of just pressing a button. You know what I mean? Like, is
Right.
there a mechanic? Can we cut the hydraulic to this door and open it? Like,
Can we negate
that
the
kind of
airlock?
stuff.
Yeah. Can we vent it?
Yeah.
Because, dude, venting, once they get atmospherics down, right, and like oxygen in your ship is going to matter. So you can't just willy nilly open your doors anymore. Or you can't just like open the back door of a Valkyrie and then, 10 feet over, you have someone without a spacesuit on, just like blah, 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 because like that's just the state of the alpha game right now. Like that will
Yeah.
matter. So, like, that's another context that doesn't make sense. How are you supposed to vent the Valkyrie without the crew being exposed? Because there's no airlock system. There's no sealed crew quarters, right? So like stuff like that, CIG has been. I think they've been missing the mark and not thinking things all the way through. Putting stuff in the game, I get it though, because it's probably hard to juggle all that and make
It's
us happy.
complex.
It's so complex.
Yeah, it's a complex
Yeah.
game. I don't envy CIG.
No.
I
No.
love them for what they're doing. I do not envy their position.
No. And sometimes, yeah, we get a little frustrated because we don't know everything. And again, we're not
Right.
programmers, so we can't deep dive onto that. So maybe I think we're gonna have some game developers that we know come on. Kind of, we'll just use like their gamer tag, or maybe we'll keep them completely, what's the
Feel
word?
like the blacked out thing.
Incognito. Yeah, we'll
Change
give a
your
voice
voice.
changer. Yeah. But we'll get their opinion too because they're game developers and they have experience doing this. So
Sure.
we're just throwing out ideas to start discussion amongst the community. And that's what we'd like to see is more depth into those roles. So we had Breacher. We already talked a little bit about Long Gun. Long Gun's pretty simple. We just want, I think they've already done pretty decent with long guns.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, like the bearing scope. That's a futuristic scope that I feel like belongs here because it
Mhm.
gives you range updates. Wherever your reticle is pointing, it will tell you live update, 2,300 meter. I think it caps at 2,000 meters, but it will tell you like
Sure.
1,000, 1,000, 1,100, or whatever, 956 meters. It'll tell you specifically where you're looking at. Then you can range it. You can actually like zero your scope. You press page up, and it will zero it to whatever you're looking at, which is pretty cool. I think that's a futuristic scope that belongs there.
I'll say this: if CIG is willing to go and talk to astrophysicists to make their universe as realistic as possible, right? I just don't think that it's out of the realm of possibilities that they don't go to war fighters, right? Like,
Mm.
and I think they've done it with pilots too. They've actually talked to real pilots and said, tell me your stories, like, let me hear your, like, what would you, if you had to envision a spaceship from your, experience, what would that look like? What does that feel like?
Yeah.
And so, they've done that for space combat. Well, why not do that for ground guys too, right? Like, go
Totally.
and talk to some, and don't do it from just like like, get European military guys and get US and Canadian and all these different
Yes.
like militaries and talk to them and see what their experiences are. And I guarantee it's more useful than going to the range and shooting the gun in the long term, right? Like, for a developer to go shoot a gun, I think they can understand, like, oh wow, that's a lot more power or less powerful than I thought it was going to be,
Sure.
right? So they can get that tactile feedback and build that in, but then you're missing the whole context of why that gun exists. Why does
Yes.
that tool exist, right? So get the theory behind the tool as well as the feel of the tool, you know?
Yeah, and this stuff happens. This missing context happens in almost anything. It happens in video games a lot, but it
Mhm.
also happens in real world, like the gun industry in the United States. A lot of people demonize it. It's very the media tends to make it look bad, but a lot I just see a lot of responsible gun owners, right, looking for knowledge. But a lot of times I'll have a friend, he's never served in the military or anything. He's just got his equipment he's very responsible for and he likes to train. He's like, oh man, I really need some night vision. I'm like, no, you don't, homie. Guess what? Like, if you're out there boogalooing with your night vision and your nods and you don't have the context for that and you're by yourself, you're going to get killed. If you do need to use that in some apocalyptic thing, whatever, just stay indoors and don't use your night. Don't get night vision. You know, like that's just missing context. I don't need night vision.
Right.
You know, it's like funny stuff like that happens all over the place. But there's so much to glean from going and talking to people who are actually doing the job, right? To put it into this context. I'm making a tabletop game. It's similar to D&D. I just kind of rewrote some of the dice rules and making my own structure for it. But it's basically Space Dungeons and Dragons equivalent. And I'm talking to people that have better experience than me in that, right? Because you could even go, a CIG could very much go to a pilot and say, hey, we're not going to talk to you about flying. I'm going to talk to you about ejecting. What's that
Right.
like? Okay, cool. What is hooked onto the back of your chair so when you hit the ground, going into a first person section of the game again, you're no longer flying your ship. You've successfully ejected over microtech. Like, what emergency gear should a pilot have while flying over microtech in particular? Probably some warm weather clothing to survive, some flares, right? What does that look like? Because that's first person still, right? So you could
Mhm.
still go talk to the pilots. You could go talk to a tanker, to a mechanized cavalryman, go talk
Yeah.
to a sniper, a
Motor
recon
T
guy.
guys in the military, motor
Yeah,
transportation dudes. Go talk to them. How do you fix a vehicle? Why do you fix a vehicle? What types of vehicles to
yeah.
use? What are their purposes? Why do they exist? You know, like
How do you
everybody wants
drive
a
them?
tank, but what is a tank for? You know, it's for
Right.
tank battles. That's why tanks exist, because one guy made a tank, so the other guy had to make a tank, and they fight each other. But we found other uses for them. You know, like
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it would be cool too to see more of that defined, more vehicle stuff
Mhm.
too, like maybe ways to camouflage your vehicle from the air, ways to be more more discreet. Also, more tools to discover. If imagine we got so in the op last night, the other org threw a curveball at us. You know, we didn't define the parameters very well, so props to them for thinking outside the box.
oh yeah, absolutely.
So like we we go to the objective and we're thinking we're just with an infantry squad, and we didn't have we were planning on getting into a hard structure ASAP. So I didn't even bring railguns or anything to combat vehicles. But it would be nice to have some more tools to be able to scan. Like what we ended up getting up to a hilltop, establishing a 360 of degrees security or perimeter, and just calling out objectives and stuff because we were relying on air to search and find this VIP out in the wilderness of Hurston over by Operi. Gorgeous. It was awesome. But we're just like, dude, we're useless on the ground. So let's get to a hilltop and at least look around. So that's what we did. But imagine if we had a portable scanner that we could set up now. And now we're gathering data and relaying that to the air. So it's useful.
Or
Setting up,
maybe it's handheld and it has
yeah,
less of a range, right? Something
like
you could
that.
just attach to your thigh, pull it off, look around, put it back, you know?
Yeah, or like that dude who's in that rinky dink tower over on Yavin 4. And
Yeah, yeah.
he's just like speed gunning these ships as they
Right.
come in. It's like, just give us something like that. We're like, what is that ship? You know, it'd be cool if we could have a portable scanner, hone it in and see like, what is that ship, or just what's in the sky above us. And you're like, oh shit,
Yeah,
there's an Eclipse bomber or a Hammerhead or whatever. That would be
sure.
really cool. So
Or a person, it reads heartbeats. It reads, you know, like we have the actor status of our heartbeat going up. So if somebody's running, that heartbeat's going to be higher, you
yeah,
know, maybe that's something that scanner can pick up, those vibrations. I don't know. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
getting
And
like
it's
weird
limited to
here, but
range, right?
right. Yeah, it's range
Right.
limited and it has an arc, right? Like it's not a
Mm-hmm.
360 thing. It's not built into your suit. It's not something that you have in your HUD all the time. Or
Yeah.
maybe it is. Maybe it's something that you have a scanner guy, right? Like a dude whose job is scanning. Like we're making up roles at this point, but a
Yeah.
dude who scans and
Dude,
that
serious.
can be piped into your team's headset, right?
Yeah. If you got a
I
heads
don't
up
know.
display on your
Yeah.
helmet, like a lot of info could be piped into there if you're within proximity
Right.
of each other.
Yeah.
Bluetooth, or like a lot of science fiction books or movies and stuff, they use like little laser comms. So if I'm in line of
Yeah.
sight with you, maybe instead of putting out a big radio blast through the airwaves that could be triangulated, maybe I
Sure.
could just laser comm you from hilltop to hilltop, just little beep, 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 beep,
Yep.
little Morse code
And
with infrared.
you lose line of sight, you lose the connection to it.
Sure.
It could be the handheld could just like pull up and I want Daft Hobbit and Echo 5 Romeo to be added to this feed and boop pops up into our fucking headset
Yes.
and we can decide whether we want it or not. Right. But if we
Yeah.
lose line of sight, like we lose that feed so we can't see it. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of that's a really great idea. That's a cool tool.
Yeah.
I think
There's so much,
especially
we
with
could do.
FPS scanning coming up, right?
Exactly. And then also, I think ships are going to have that ability to scan the ground for life signs, so they can see an infantry squad on the ground. Because like right now on the ground, if you want to be safe and undiscoverable, just get out of your ship and run into the bushes. Like no one will find you. That's the safest place until you run out of food and water, But that would be fun. I would like to see a big expansion of the Moby Glass being able to be on your HUD, just more tools that would
Maybe
be
it's an upgrade
useful.
for your Moby Glass. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, give us a military Moby Glass that does give us more heads up display. Because like on my civilian cell phone, there is a compass app I could download that's really janky, but like I don't need a compass day to day. I don't need to get a bearing or an azimuth. I don't need to range things. I'm just driving to work, right? So if I have a civilian Moby Glass, cool. Maybe I can text message and look at the latest space Instagram. But if I have a military version of the Moby Glass, like that would make sense for a UEE Marine to have, right? Some military hardware and tech with encryption and tools. That would be fucking fantastic if we could get that. So
I like your idea of a hand. I think it's cool if it's a standalone handheld like entity, right? Because now you're getting into the logistics of it all. Like, do I carry the torch gun? Do I carry the scanner? I can't carry the torch gun, the scanner, and a medical gun, right? So now it's making you make decisions about how to load out. It's giving element leaders and orgs that like to have that military sort of background and saying like, hey, Echo, you're the scanning guy. Hey, Daft, you're the medic guy, And now we know what tools we can take to perform our billets and our roles good, right? Like to the best of our abilities.
You just gave me some great ideas here. So what if it was a tablet like this, right?
Yeah.
It's both handed. Like we already are doing this and we're sticking it on an asteroid, right? For some mining tool.
Right.
Like just give us this that I can pull out. That's now I've just defined a command role.
Pull it down, look around, like so I can see both.
Yeah.
Like the screen and my surroundings.
It's a tactical
much
map.
the same way you would do with binos, right? You pull them up, you look at your surroundings, that kind of stuff,
Exactly. That would be a huge.
That's
command
what I was
role.
envisioning. Either that or the little handhold tool from Ghostbusters, where they're like looking for ghosts,
Scanning.
I don't know.
Yeah. But with just that tool, you would define an entire command role. If you could organize a tactical map and get data and talk to the air, as well as like the equivalent of a TAC-P in real life, somebody who's talking air to ground, another role as well, which will be huge. It'll be crucial, even if you're running a mining operation, first person. Like, what if someone could get on the ground? Because if you go look at the Argo Mole commercial, it's like way cool. Like you got all these elements, and then you got this dude like standing on the rock. He's probably like he's within the blast range, just like monitoring some device. And you're like, why isn't that in the game? Like, who's that dude? I want to be that guy. If we were doing mining,
Right.
I want to be on the ground, just like taking dirt samples and being like, looks good, this is great. And then if that rock blows up, that dude's toast,
Sure.
But he's out there adding value with some device, like, okay, it looks good, you know.
Sure.
And then they have like an Argo cargo like floating around the mole, just in the commercial. So like these things that we're using for tactical for our gameplay that we want can also expand into bounty hunting. They could expand, like an upgraded Mobi-Glass could help you mining. Wow, like you know, what if you could just
Yeah.
Mobi-Glass scan shit as you walk around, like instead find that rock that you want to mine first person. Wow,
Yeah.
what a tool. You know, so it would be cool to feel like the game was more science fiction, like more information on my HUD when I put on a certain helmet. Maybe there's a military variant helmet that I can put on that does give me a compass, gives me. There's so many ways we could do it. So,
Yep.
what else do you want to talk about, man? We covered basically all the roles. We talked about our operation. Oh, important news for the podcast. We're on TikTok now. I know that's fun.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. But dude, we've already been getting like 500, 600 views on some of our clips. So it's mainly just us advertising on TikTok saying, hey, here's where this is how you find us. So we're on TikTok and we're on Instagram.
Well, I'll set my phone up on my mailbox then and like do a stupid dance in the street or some shit.
Yeah, dude, you just drop, pop, and lock it, dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. In the middle
Try
of
and
the
do a
road.
TikTok dance right now.
Car. You know what I mean? I gotta like get out of the road.
Yeah.
Wait.
Game on.
Yeah. Right.
But dude, so yeah, things are going well. We appreciate everybody's support with the podcast and everything. But
I want to say a huge thank you to the OAC. Wherever we can, I will link their org on their org page on Spectrum, and go check them out. They have a channel, an outreach channel that you can join. I'll get permission to post that channel up, and you guys could join that outreach channel and kind of intermingle with them and see if that's a right fit for you. They're a cool bunch of dudes. They got a planning process that it's a very cool org. So go check them out.
Very professional.
OAC. Yeah. Oh, very, very professional. I don't know what their stuff stands for, and
it stands for Omni Astra Corporation. Omni, oh, and there's the camera again. So yeah, Omni Astra Corporation. We'll have Echo link it on the YouTubes. We'll shout them out as well if they have an Instagram page or something. We'll find them. I don't know. But yeah, we'll link them, and then also stand by for some footage from the operation we had. From the ground side, it was very lackluster, but I want to show you those fundamentals that we did. Also, we got hot dropped from a hammerhead, and it went swimmingly well both times. So we'll give you that footage too. So stand by on the YouTubes for that, and then everything else. Anything else you want to cover today?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all, man. I think that's it. That's enough for the listeners to digest.
Yeah.
Let them sit on it. And feedback. Keep your feedback coming. Holy shit. Unbelievable. Thank you guys so much. People have been coming into the Gilded, and we've been having really interesting conversations. The Reddit is on fire. So thank you. Keep those questions and the conversations coming. The comments on the YouTube portion of this, like, thank you so much. We read everything, and we try to incorporate as much as possible. So thank you very, very much for your support.
Yep. We appreciate it. I think we'll leave it at that, and just stand by for more content and give us your feedback. Let us know some topics we can discuss next episode as well. So that's it for me and us, and this has been Stuck in the Nail episode 3. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you dudes on the ground.